be this. See, the country is welcoming foreign investment, foreign companies, or even private companies. They're encouraging entrepreneurship. But on the same hand, on the same in the same tone, they don't want to encourage trade unions. That's what seems to be this whole image of the government. They don't want to encourage. They don't want resistance. They want or rather, the companies don't want to encourage trade unions. They don't want any opposition to their policies, and that probably gives them opportunity to probably exploit the workers. There is a possibility of that in the future. So how do you really come out of this dilemma? What does the government do?
See, there are two things that you need to take you need to divide the whole issue into two parts. One, why are you trying to weaken the trade unions and the labor laws and the policies? One is because the diplomatic pressure that you get from the foreign countries to liberalize or to weaken the labor policies so that they would be able to function according to their plan and their vision. The second, why does this happen? You got to look on the other side. If as long as you become over dependent on the FFI, foreign direct investment or foreign investments, right? Once that happens, when you become over dependent, that means you're not creating enough wealth in your Indian organizations to invest back into the economy.
Yes.
When you are always looking for fresh funds coming from the outside, you would start listening to the demands of the organizations which are pumping money into the country. As a government, what you need to look at is ease of business. Now, the Narendra Modi government came up with this promise saying that we will make business easy and one single window opportunity, right? This single window opportunity is no longer to the Indian organizations, it is basically for the foreign investors. Now, that single window opportunity needs to be given to a lot of to the Indian organizations and Indian entrepreneurs. When that is pushed back into the capital market, you are creating more organized jobs within the country. The second, you need to look at this way. Now, if you see this Indian startup history over the last 10 years, right? Which Indian startup CEO is still sitting in its own organization? Right? Most Indian organizations which grew up as a startup, from a single dollar or a garage organization to a multi-billion-dollar organization, they have all lost their chairmanship and the CEO position. Why? Because of the direct investment that's coming in from the venture capitalist or from the larger organizations like Walmart investing into Flipkart, and the Bansals were asked to leave. And if this kind of non-supportive of the Indian entrepreneurs as a policy is existing in the Indian ecosystem, this kind of labor push will always come from the foreign land.
But don't you think that's just one or two examples, or do you think that there are a lot of examples like that, like Flipkart being taken over by a foreign company? Is it just one example, or do you think there are many more examples? Because it seems to, because on the one hand, the government is saying, like you said, make in India. But then when you make in India, the people who make in India, or rather Indians, they seem to be pushed to the sideline because you have a foreign investor coming in.
Very simple reasons, right? Now, as an Indian, you are not giving him the capital, right? Your banking has been sucked up. The capital within the banking ecosystem is almost at the lowest level today. So the banks do not have enough money to lend to the Indian entrepreneurs or the Indian corporate houses. Now, when you are coming from the outside, it means that's a fresh money coming into the capital, right? So what do you need to do is to support those people. So over a period of time, we will become more driven. Our market will be only driven by the external and the foreign forces rather than the Indian forces. Now, as an Indian government, the state governments have little to play in this. It's more of the central government's initiative. They need to make sure you are supportive of your market. If you are over dependent on the external market, that means you will fall at any given point of time because the preferences possibly could change. Now, if you're India as the 1/5 of the population of the world itself is a big market.
Yeah.
Now, how are you nurturing that market?
Yes.
If you're nurturing that market well, it means you would need your capital is churning within the own market.
Right.
Right. At the same time, you need to bring more funds from outside. What is bringing in today, as of now, the external funds into the Indian continent is the software industry and the ITES industry is bringing lots of money.
Yeah.
But that is also going back in the form of the defense purchases.
Yes.
Now, so there is an equalization or some kind of, you lose a lot of gain there. Now, if you have to safeguard your country and safeguard the labor that you have, you need to start supporting that one single initiative, one single window initiative to the Indian entrepreneurs who want to produce small, small units like China has, a 10 by 10 or 100 by 100 small factories, but they churn out big amount of product.
Right.
But today in India, we do not have such small units which can produce larger amount of large quantities of the product. If you go to Pina or you go to Coimbatore or you go to any of these industrial hubs, you will see these industrialists are actually suffering. Reason is because you are not allowing the prices, the input price of the product to come down. You are charging them in X number of ways. You have already created a web of the GST. Right, for example, I'm taking a bolt which is at a 18% GST, and I'm getting a shaft which is at 28% GST,
Yes.
and then I have a ball bearing which is at 28% GST. So there's a invariable GST input, and when you're selling the product, it is at about possibly 12% GST.
Yes.
So what you are gaining from the outside and what you're paying is not equal.
Right.
So that means as a producer, I'm paying more as GST rather than the customer paying. So I'm actually bearing the burden of the customer and the person who's actually selling me. So where is my capital draining is because of this. So because I have to regain the GST losses that I have got from the input, I will raise the price. When I raise the price, the consumer will ask me, what is the benefit between you and a foreign produced good?
Yes.
They will say, hey, that is better because we are more imported like people, so we will buy that. So we are slowly converting our Indian market into a foreign market. Now, if this kind of a system keeps moving on from time to time, our laborers will suffer. That means our unorganized unit which has about 15, 20 or 30 labor place, that unit will die.
Yeah.
When, for example, then a 100 member unit will start suffering, then a 200 member. So you will start seeing the micro SEME, MSME organizations will start suffering. Now he came up with this loan initiative saying that MSME loan दे देंगे 3 सेकंड में 10 सेकंड में. कैसे दोगे आप? उसका 3 सेकंड में असेसमेंट कैसे करोगे? 1 करोड़ रुपया दे दोगे. If you are giving a 1 crore rupees in 3 seconds, how will you even assess who is right and who is not?
Yeah.
Now, if that itself is possibly a scandal.
Yeah.
Now, if you really want to support the MSME, you need to start supporting their labor first. Then you need to start supporting them on a tax evasion, that gray zone that you have, close it down and help them that you need to only pay this much, and then we will be able to help you produce better, produce cheaper and sell it more in the market. If you do that, then your capital depth will increase.
Yes.
Once your capital depth increases, that means your banking system will get a lot of support because that capital doesn't sit in the office, it sits in the bank. When the bank has a lot of money, that means the bank can actually give more credit to the other organizations. Now, this is how you look at expanding the economic, the web and the frame. But this government is not looking the whole as a macro. It is looking issues from a micro level, and they're using a very telescopic view to see there's a labor problem, these people want that, and I will do this, and that repercussions are having at the banking level. Now, how do you really look at is because you need to start seeing, do you want India as a country to be at the top 3 of the economies? If you want
So
India
that's
to
the
be
reason for the bankers also to protest. They want, because the banks want to merge, they want to make them, some of the banks want to merge with the other banks. It's already happened.
Absolutely. 3 banks merging together when they are very independent banks. Who allowed the Dena Bank to issue huge amount of funds when they didn't have enough corpus? How did they even give loans? Under whose behest? In the last 5 years, it has become sick. The shares of Dena Bank were at the top, and they have actually crashed. Now, the 3 bank employees are going to be working for the same customer. So that means your labor is increased. There's less services to be provided. So who is going to bear the cost? The organization as a one single bank will offer the voluntary retirement to the oldest part of the clerical staff. And those people are at the brink of completing the education of their children.
Absolutely.
And at that point of time, you're pushing them out of the system. That means the guy who was supposed to become a producer becomes a liability to the family and to the society.
Yes.
Now, how do you change that? How do you help people become better, more successful and more happier? To allow them naturally retire. Not on a push them out because they are little older, and I will allow the people who are having smaller kids and at the age of about 45, 50 will stay in the organization. Anybody beyond 50 will retire because we don't need their services anymore. Now, what about the legacy of 40 years, 30 years that he served in the organization? Who is going to ask that? But what about the impact on his family? Is the government even thinking about it? No. And this is where our labours will suffer if this kind of a regressive policy continues in the next 5 years to 10 years. You will see a huge civil unrest. The day the people do not have provisions to their family and to their well-being, to their loved ones, that's when people start getting frustrated and pushing the system against the wall. When the system is pushed against the wall, it means it's a breaking point. It's a threshold point. And now I see the first level of threshold point has reached today. And now in the next session, if the government pushes this bill and gets it cleared in the Lok Sabha and the Raj Sabha, it means our labor is going to suffer for a very long time.
Absolutely.
To undo that bill, I would need the same parliamentary ecosystem today. I need to have the majority in the Lok Sabha and the Raj Sabha and get them past the same bill. Now this government has 17 states in its bag. It has Lok Sabha, it has Raj Sabha, and it can switch and it can spin any bill the way they would want it. And that's the danger of the situation.
Right. I just want to bring in Hamid as well. Hamid, this is what, well, the government's plan is this. This is what the government seems to be planning. But quickly, if you can tell me, how soon do you think the government will actually listen to the voices of the people? Do you think this protest will actually make a change?
My thought is, the last time also we went through Raj Bhavan and we returned back. This time also getting the same. But finally, if they listen our voices, what our queries, what's our problem, that is for entire, not for political background thinking for this protest. They don't want to make it for a political background. This is for a common man. Everybody needed this issue should be resolved.
Yes.
Why means everybody have this problem. So if they not listen, then we are think the central government is not working properly.
Right. Okay. So hopefully this protest will ring the bell in the mind of the central government. It will reach up to the capital. It will reach up to Delhi, and maybe the NDA government would rethink what they're attempting to do, because there seems to be so many loopholes, there seem to be so many disadvantages of the amendment which would be brought. On that note, I'd like to thank Nizam, I'd like to thank Hamid for joining us on this panel. That's a wrap on this special discussion. Coming up on the other side is a News9 special. Stay tuned.